Welcome to a journey back in time, to the medieval era, a period shrouded in myth and mystery. From unusual hygiene practices to extreme justice systems, the medieval world was a place of stark contrasts, where life and death were constant companions. Join us as we uncover 20 medieval traditions that offer a glimpse into this fascinating and often unsettling period of human history. In the unforgiving landscape of medieval justice, guilt or innocence was often determined not by evidence, but by endurance. Imagine being accused of a crime and facing not a jury of your peers, but a trial by ordeal. These trials, steeped in superstition, subjected the accused to extreme physical challenges. One might be forced to plunge their arm into boiling water or retrieve a stone from a cauldron of molten metal. Survival was seen as divine intervention, proof of innocence. The medieval world operated under a delicate balance, or so it was believed. This balance was maintained within the human body by four humours: blood, phlegm, yellow bile and black bile. Illness was a sign of imbalance, an excess of one humour or another. Enter bloodletting, a practice as ubiquitous as it was flawed, often using leeches or sharp instruments. Barber surgeons drained blood in hopes of restoring the body's equilibrium. Marriage in the medieval era was marked by a tapestry of customs and rituals, some more peculiar than others. Imagine a world where the joining of two lives was marked not by the exchange of rings, but by the binding of hands. This was the essence of hand fasting, a ceremony where the hands of the betrothed were literally tied together. Such traditions offer a glimpse into the rich and often perplexing tapestry of medieval life. The line between justice and entertainment blurred in the medieval world, where public executions were grim spectacles. Imagine a time when the town square transformed into a macabre theatre, the air thick with anticipation and dread. The condemned became actors in their own tragedies, their fates a source of morbid fascination for the assembled throng. In this world, death was a public affair, a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the ever-present hand of authority. The medieval legal system was no stranger to unusual practices. But perhaps none were as peculiar as the trials of animals. Yes, you heard that right. Animals, from pigs accused of devouring crops to insects blamed for blighting harvests, could find themselves hauled before courts of law. These trials, often presided over by actual judges, were conducted with the utmost seriousness. Guilty verdicts could result in punishments ranging from banishment to execution. The sights and smells of a medieval city would likely assault our modern sensibilities. Sanitation, as we understand it, was a luxury yet to be fully realized. Waste disposal presented a constant challenge. Cesspits, those subterranean holding tanks of refuse, were a common sight, their pungent aroma a constant reminder of medieval life. Chamber pots, emptied from windows with little regard for those below, added to the olfactory assault. It was a world where one had to tread carefully, navigating a landscape where waste disposal was haphazard. In the grim catalogue of medieval punishments, few were as brutal as death by boiling. Reserved for the most heinous crimes, it was a spectacle that embodied the era's unforgiving approach to justice. Imagine the condemned being lowered into a cauldron of water or oil, the heat slowly sapping their life force. The very air, thick with the stench of fear and suffering, served as a grim deterrent. Leprosy, a chronic infectious disease, cast a long shadow over the medieval world. Feared and misunderstood, it led to the ostracization of those unfortunate enough to contract it. Leper colonies, established on the outskirts of towns and villages, became refugees for the afflicted. The haunting sound of the leper's clapper served as a constant reminder of the fear and stigma associated with this debilitating disease. Death, the great equalizer, was met with a mixture of fear and reverence in the medieval era. Burial customs, often steeped in superstition, reflected this complex relationship with mortality. Imagine a world where the dead were buried face down, their souls prevented from escaping to torment the living. Graves were often marked with iron stakes, a physical barrier against the restless dead. Such practices highlight the medieval preoccupation with the afterlife and the thin veil believed to separate the living from the dead. The Black Death, a devastating pandemic that swept across Europe in the 14th century, left an indelible mark on the medieval psyche. Amidst the unimaginable suffering and death, a religious movement known as the flagellants emerged. These groups, driven by fear and a desperate desire to appease God's wrath, resorted to extreme acts of self-flagellation. Imagine processions of men, their bodies bare, whipping themselves with iron-tipped scourges. Surgery in the medieval era was a far cry from the sterile and technologically advanced procedures we know today. Imagine a world without anesthesia, where pain relief amounted to little more than a stiff drink and a prayer. Surgeons operated with rudimentary tools, their knowledge of anatomy limited and their methods often crude and dangerous. Public shaming, a potent tool of social control, found many expressions in the medieval world. Drunkards, often seen as a nuisance and a drain on society, were frequent targets of such punishments. Imagine being forced to wear the drunkard's cloak, a heavy barrel-shaped garment designed to humiliate the wearer. In certain parts of medieval Europe, death had its own designated routes, paths known as corpse roads. These roads served a singular purpose: to transport the dead from villages to burial grounds located outside of town limits. Toothaches, those agonizing pangs of pain, were an unfortunate reality of life in the medieval era. And like many ailments of the time, their treatment was often as painful as the affliction itself. Imagine having a tooth extracted not in a sterile dental clinic, but in the bustling chaos of the marketplace. The medieval social hierarchy was a rigid structure, with the nobility occupying the apex. This concept, known as noblesse oblige, dictated that nobles had a duty to protect and provide for those beneath them. While this often manifested in acts of charity and patronage, it also gave rise to a system of feudalism. Feasts, those lavish displays of wealth and abundance, were a hallmark of medieval life. And no feast was complete without a table laden with exotic meats, a testament to the host's status and connections. Imagine platters piled high with peacocks, their feathers arranged in extravagant displays. Swans and even dolphins found their way onto medieval menus. Death, the great leveller, held a prominent place in medieval art and literature. The dance macabre, or dance of death, was a popular motif that emerged in the 14th century. Imagine skeletal figures leading mortals from all walks of life in a macabre waltz, a chilling allegory for the universality of death. The medieval understanding of the human body differed greatly from our own. Central to their medical practices was the theory of the four humours: blood, phlegm, yellow bile and black bile. Illness was seen as an imbalance, an excess of one humour or a deficiency of another. Treatments ranged from bloodletting to purging to the use of herbs to restore the body's equilibrium. Warfare in the medieval era was a brutal affair, a chaotic clash of steel muscle and fire. But amidst the human combatants, another more surprising group took to the battlefield animals. Horses were indispensable, carrying knights into the fray. Even elephants were employed in some campaigns, their size and strength striking fear into the hearts of their opponents. Faith played a central role in medieval life, shaping not only beliefs but also actions. Pilgrimages, journeys to sacred sites undertaken as acts of devotion or penance, were a common sight. These journeys, often fraught with danger and hardship, were seen as a way to demonstrate faith and atone for sins. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the strange and often unsettling world of medieval traditions. From trials by ordeal to bloodletting, we have glimpsed a world both foreign and strangely familiar. If you found this exploration of the past as fascinating as we did, be sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell for more captivating content. Until next time, may your journeys be filled with wonder and discovery.